While most of us chase gardening hacks online, the Amish have been quietly perfecting them for centuries without a single app, gadget, or chemical. Their gardens stay lush, pest-free, and overflowing with food using 50 gardening secrets most of the world has forgotten. These aren't just old tricks. They're powerful lessons anyone can use to grow more and waste less. The Amish starter rule: build the soil first. The Amish have a saying that soil should feel alive before anything gets planted. They don't just toss seeds into dirt and hope for the best. Instead, they spend weeks preparing the ground, mixing in aged compost, animal manure, and wood ash until the texture becomes rich and crumbly. When you grab a handful of properly prepared Amish soil, it holds together but breaks apart easily, almost like chocolate cake. Most gardeners spend more time choosing seeds than the Amish spend choosing what goes into their soil. This preparation builds long-term fertility that lasts years, not just one season. Healthy soil naturally reduces pests because strong plants resist attacks better. It also holds moisture longer, meaning less watering during dry spells. The Amish treat soil as the actual foundation of their garden, not an afterthought. While most people focus on which tomato variety to buy, Amish farmers focus on building soil that makes any variety thrive. The Amish no-fertilizer formula. Chemical fertilizers promise quick results, but the Amish skip them completely. They brew compost tea and liquid manure instead, creating a natural plant food that releases nutrients slowly over time. Unlike synthetic options that can burn roots overnight if applied incorrectly, this homemade mixture feeds plants gently and consistently. The slow release means plants absorb what they need without excess salts building up in the soil. Earthworms multiply rapidly in gardens treated this way because they thrive on organic material. These worms aerate the soil better than any tool, creating channels for roots and water. The result is fewer weeds since healthy soil grows what you want, not what blows in. Diseases struggle to take hold because balanced nutrition creates natural resistance. Store-bought fertilizers require repeat purchases every season, but the Amish formula costs essentially nothing and works better. Amish seed, saving for adaptation. Buying new seeds every spring drains money fast, but Amish farmers found a better system generations ago. They save seeds only from their strongest plants each season. That tomato plant that survived the drought while others wilted, its seeds get carefully collected and stored. The bean plant that resisted pests naturally, those seeds go into next year's planting. If seeds went to school, Amish varieties would graduate with perfect attendance in survival class. Over years and decades, this creates plant varieties perfectly adapted to local conditions. The seeds know the soil, understand the weather patterns, and perform better than any catalog variety. Storage happens in paper envelopes with a light dusting of wood ash to prevent moisture and pests. No fancy packaging, no genetic modifications, just natural selection happening in real time. The cost stays near zero, while seed quality climbs every generation. Raised beds, the Amish way. Raised garden beds didn't start as a modern trend. The Amish have shaped them by hand for generations, building beds 12 to 18 inches high using logs or planks. These frames get filled with aged compost that's been breaking down for months, creating rich growing medium. The extra height serves multiple purposes that flat gardens can't match. First, it keeps the root zone warmer in early spring when flat ground still holds winter's chill. Second, excess rain drains away quickly so roots never sit in waterlogged soil rotting. This means planting can happen weeks earlier than traditional gardens, even when frost still threatens. The soil warms faster under spring sunshine, giving plants a crucial head start. That extra growing time translates directly into bigger harvests. While neighbors wait for ground to dry, Amish raised beds are already sprouting. Moon-guided planting. The Amish plant root vegetables during a waning moon and leafy crops during a waxing moon. This isn't superstition wearing farming clothes, it's based on how lunar cycles affect moisture movement. When the moon pulls ocean tides, it also influences water in soil and plant tissues. Root crops like carrots and potatoes grow better when moisture draws downward during the waning phase. Leafy vegetables like lettuce and spinach thrive when rising sap supports leaf development during the waxing phase. The moon doesn't send calendar reminders, but Amish farmers never miss an appointment. This natural timing system helps schedule planting without weather apps or satellite data. Seeds germinate faster and establish stronger when planted in harmony with lunar cycles. It costs nothing and delivers results that make modern farming methods look overcomplicated. Amish farms across the country still follow moon planting today. Simple homemade pest sprays. Garden pests meet their match in a simple Amish mixture of garlic, soap, and vinegar. These three ingredients mix with water to create a spray that deters insects without harming plants or beneficial bugs. Application timing matters, though. Early morning or late evening works best because midday sun can burn wet leaves. The solution is completely biodegradable, breaking down naturally without leaving toxic residues. Bees and butterflies pass right through it unharmed, unlike chemical pesticides that kill everything. Store-bought pest sprays come with warning labels and prices that make you think twice. The Amish version uses kitchen staples most people already own. Aphids, beetles, and even some larger bugs smell this mixture and decide the garden isn't worth visiting. Weekly reapplication during peak pest season keeps protection strong, and the low cost means spraying generously never strains the budget. Deep watering technique. Most gardeners water daily with quick sprinkles, but Amish farmers do the opposite. They water deeply once per week, letting moisture soak far into the soil instead of just wetting the surface. This forces roots to grow downward chasing that water rather than staying shallow and lazy near the top. Deep-rooted plants handle drought like champions because they tap into moisture reserves that shallow roots never reach. Shallow-rooted plants are like people who only save pennies. Eventually, the jar runs empty. Rain barrels collect water naturally without pumps or electricity. Gravity-fed hoses release this water slowly and steadily around plant bases. This method saves 40 to 60% of water compared to modern sprinkler systems that waste half their output to evaporation. The Amish understood water conservation before it became an environmental buzzword, and their gardens stay green through dry spells that turn other gardens brown and crispy. Smart crop rotation. The Amish never plant the same crop in the same spot 2 years running. They rotate by plant type, moving root vegetables, fruiting plants, leafy greens, and legumes through a 4-year cycle. This pattern prevents soil exhaustion because different crops pull different nutrients. It also disrupts pest cycles since insects can't set up permanent homes when their food source keeps moving. A typical Amish rotation starts with beans because they add nitrogen back into soil. Next comes corn, which needs that nitrogen to grow tall and produce well. Then squash, which uses leftover nutrients efficiently. Finally, cabbage, which cleans up remaining resources. No chemical fertilizers needed for soil recovery. No pesticides required to break insect breeding cycles. The system is so effective that Amish gardens produce abundantly year after year without ever looking depleted or tired. Soil stays balanced naturally through strategic planning. The Amish mulch system. Bare soil is rare in Amish gardens. Straw, dried leaves, and sawdust cover the ground year-round like a protective blanket. This mulch layer performs multiple jobs simultaneously without any extra effort. It smothers weeds before they can establish strong root systems. It keeps soil cool during brutal summer heat waves. It feeds beneficial microbes as it slowly decomposes throughout the season. Mulch is basically sunscreen and breakfast for gardens, all rolled into one layer. Watering frequency drops by half because moisture can't evaporate through the thick covering. Earthworms thrive underneath, tunneling constantly and aerating soil better than expensive tillers. The mulch gets replenished as it breaks down, creating a self-feeding cycle. Commercial weed barriers and plastic sheeting can't compete because they don't improve soil structure while working. The Amish have proven this system for generations, one perfectly mulched garden at a time. The vine and pole trick. Beans, cucumbers, and squash naturally want to climb if given something to grab. The Amish train these vining crops up poles or woven fences instead of letting them sprawl across the ground. Growing vertically improves airflow dramatically around leaves and stems. Better airflow means fungal diseases struggle to take hold because fungi love damp, still conditions. Harvesting becomes easier too since vegetables hang at eye level instead of hiding under ground-level foliage. The yield increase is impressive, often doubling what the same space produces when plants grow horizontally. It's like getting a second garden for free just by adding some poles. The Amish figured this out long before urban gardening made vertical growing trendy. They've been stacking harvests in small spaces for generations while others wasted land letting vines sprawl. Using chickens for pest control. Before planting season begins, Amish farmers release chickens into their garden plots. These birds aren't just wandering around looking decorative or providing entertainment. They're working hard, scratching through soil and eating weed seeds before those seeds can sprout. Chickens also snap up insects that would otherwise damage crops once planting starts. Their droppings fertilize as they work, adding nitrogen and other nutrients exactly where they'll be needed. Chickens basically work for scratch grain and never request vacation days or health insurance. The Amish carefully fence sections, rotating chickens through different areas so no spot gets over-scratched or over-fertilized. This creates a natural two-in-one system handling pest management and fertilization without chemicals or store-bought products. By the time planting arrives, soil is cleaned, enriched, and ready for seeds. It's farming efficiency that uses animals as tools instead of decorative lawn ornaments. Amish Companion Planting System. Certain plants protect each other when grown side by side, and the Amish have memorized these partnerships through generations of observation. Marigolds planted near tomatoes release chemicals from their roots that repel nematodes, tiny worms that attack tomato root systems. Beans fix nitrogen from air into soil, so corn planted nearby receives natural fertilizer boosts throughout the season. Dill or basil near cabbage confuses pest insects with strong scents, keeping destructive cabbage worms away. These combinations aren't random experiments, they're proven strategies that eliminate pesticide needs while improving growth. Every pairing serves a specific purpose, either boosting soil nutrients, repelling harmful insects, or attracting beneficial ones. The Amish don't need university research studies to validate what works because they've been field testing these combinations for over a century with consistent results. The straw path technique. Garden paths turn into muddy nightmares after heavy rain, but Amish farmers solve this with thick straw layers between planting beds. These walkways stay dry and clean while suppressing weeds that would otherwise grow where feet constantly tread. At season's end, that used straw doesn't get thrown away. It gets collected and added to compost piles where it breaks down into rich organic matter for next year's beds. Straw paths are basically red carpets for gardeners, minus the photographers and uncomfortable formal wear. The straw keeps underlying soil soft and workable instead of becoming compacted from constant foot traffic. It's natural carpet that actively improves the garden even while protecting boots and shoes. Plastic mats and landscape fabric can't match this because they don't decompose into valuable fertilizer when their useful life ends. Nothing goes to waste in this system. Simple weather reading. The Amish predict weather without apps, satellites, or television meteorologists. They watch bird flight patterns, check morning dew levels, and note wind direction changes throughout the day. Birds flying low usually signal incoming rain because low air pressure makes high-altitude flight difficult. Morning fog combined with low clouds indicates high moisture content, perfect conditions for seeding. Heavy dew means clear night skies cooled the ground efficiently, suggesting stable weather ahead. These natural observations guide decisions about when to water, when to harvest, and when to protect tender plants from storms. Short-term accuracy often rivals modern forecasts, and it costs nothing but attention and experience. The Amish plan entire gardening schedules around these signs, and their timing rarely misses the mark. This knowledge passes down through generations, refined by experience until reading the sky becomes as natural as reading printed words. Homemade compost in layers. Building quality compost isn't about throwing scraps in a pile and forgetting them. The Amish layer materials strategically, alternating dry stuff like straw and leaves with wet materials like manure and kitchen scraps. This balance between carbon-rich and nitrogen-rich ingredients creates perfect decomposition conditions. Every few weeks, they turn the pile with pitchforks, mixing in oxygen that feeds beneficial bacteria doing the breakdown work. If bacteria reviewed restaurants, Amish compost piles would earn 5 stars for buffet variety and service. Between layers, they sprinkle regular garden soil to introduce more microbes into the mix. Within 3 to 4 months, the pile transforms completely into dark, crumbly compost that smells like rich earth instead of rotting garbage. This becomes the foundation for next season's soil building, closing a loop where waste transforms into wealth without leaving the property. Root cellar storage. Electricity bills never touch Amish food storage systems because they use underground pits or small rooms that stay naturally cool year-round. Produce gets arranged in careful layers of straw and sand that regulate temperature and humidity perfectly. Apples sit separately from potatoes because apples release ethylene gas that makes potatoes sprout prematurely, reducing storage life. Root vegetables like carrots and turnips last 6 months or longer in these stable conditions. Temperature hovers just above freezing without mechanical cooling, preventing rot while avoiding freeze damage. This preservation system has worked for generations without a single blown fuse or failed compressor. Modern refrigeration seems convenient until power outages spoil everything inside. Root cellars keep working regardless of what the electrical grid does. The method proves that the oldest food storage technology still beats the newest for reliability and operating cost. Natural pollination boosters. Empty garden edges represent missed opportunities in Amish thinking. They plant clover, sunflowers, and various flowering plants around vegetable plots to attract bees and butterflies. These pollinators don't just visit the decorative flowers, they work vegetable blossoms too while they're in the neighborhood. More pollinator visits mean more fruits and vegetables actually develop instead of blossoms dropping off unfertilized and wasted. Bees treat gardens like buffets where dessert flowers make the vegetable course taste better to everyone. This yield boost costs nothing except flower seeds and a bit of border space that wasn't producing anyway. Wildflower borders work especially well because they bloom at different times, keeping pollinators returning all season long. The Amish don't buy commercial pollination services or hand pollinate with paintbrushes like some modern operations do. They let nature's workforce handle it by making gardens attractive workplaces for insects. The Amish weed early habit. 10 minutes spent weeding daily beats spending 3 hours on weekends, and Amish farmers learned this lesson generations ago. They pull weeds before sunrise or after sunset when cooler soil makes roots release easier. Catching weeds while they're small prevents seed production, and one weed can drop hundreds of seeds that become next year's nightmare. Early control stops that multiplication before it starts. Cooler soil temperature during these times means less strain on hands and easier pulling without breaking stems and leaving roots behind. This daily habit keeps gardens manageable instead of letting them become overwhelming jungles. The Amish approach weeding like brushing teeth, a small regular task preventing bigger problems later. By the time most gardeners notice weeds taking over, Amish gardens have been weed-free for weeks already through consistent small efforts. Shade rows for sensitive crops. Tall plants like corn and beans serve double duty in Amish gardens. They produce food while casting shade that protects heat-sensitive crops like spinach, lettuce, and delicate herbs. These leafy greens wilt fast under harsh afternoon sun, but planted on the shaded side of taller crops, they thrive through summer heat. This shade also reduces water loss from soil evaporation and prevents leaf burn on tender plants that can't handle full sun all day. Corn doesn't realize it's playing bodyguard for lettuce, but it does the job perfectly anyway. The Amish plan garden layouts with sun angles in mind, positioning tall and short crops so everything gets optimal conditions. This intentional spacing makes every plant grow better than it would alone. The garden becomes a cooperative community where plants support each other rather than just individual rows competing for identical resources. Testing soil by hand? Soil testing labs charge money and take time, but the Amish get instant results using just their hands. They grab a handful of slightly moist soil and squeeze it into a ball. Opening the hand reveals everything needed. If the ball crumbles slowly into a few chunks, soil structure is balanced and perfect. If it stays in a tight, sticky ball, too much clay is choking out necessary air spaces. If it falls apart immediately into dust, it's too sandy and low on organic matter. Clay-heavy soil gets amended with compost and coarse sand to open up structure. Sandy soil receives more compost and manure to build structure and nutrient-holding capacity. This method costs nothing and delivers results in seconds. The Amish have diagnosed soil problems by touch for generations, and their gardens grow just as well as any laboratory-tested plot proves. Using ash for pest and pH control, wood ash from heating stoves doesn't go to waste in Amish homes. It gets sprinkled lightly around garden plants where it handles double duty efficiently. First, it adds potassium, which plants need for strong stems and natural disease resistance. Second, it raises soil pH naturally, helping in areas where soil runs too acidic for vegetable production. Snails and beetles hate crossing ash barriers because it sticks to their bodies and dries them out painfully, so they avoid dusted areas completely. Ash basically gives slugs the worst spa treatment imaginable, and they never come back for seconds. The key is using ash lightly because too much can burn tender roots and push pH too high. The Amish apply it with a careful hand, knowing a little goes a long way. It's free, handles multiple problems with one material, and works better than expensive commercial alternatives. Double cropping strategy. Land is too valuable to leave idle between seasons in Amish thinking. After harvesting an early crop, they immediately plant something quick-growing in the same spot. Lettuce finishes early enough for beans to follow. Radishes mature so fast that carrots can go in right after harvest. This maximizes every square foot of garden space and keeps soil biology active with constant root presence feeding microbes. Empty soil loses nutrients and structure faster than planted soil does. Keeping plants growing means beneficial microbes stay fed and active all season instead of going dormant. Extended production means substantially more food from identical land area without expanding garden size. It's efficiency that compounds over time, where good planning in spring pays off through late fall. The Amish have practiced double cropping since before intensive farming became a trendy agricultural term. Using cold frames for early germination. Spring arrives late in many regions, but the Amish don't wait around for perfect weather. They build simple cold frames using old windows laid over wooden boxes. These miniature greenhouses trap solar heat and protect tender seedlings from frost damage. Inside a cold frame, temperatures can run 20 or 30 degrees warmer than outside air, creating a pocket of spring before spring actually arrives. This extends the growing season by 4 to 6 weeks on both ends, meaning earlier harvests and later fall production than neighbors achieve. Plants in cold frames get climate-controlled treatment while others wait outside in the cold. The frames get built from scrap materials, nothing fancy or expensive required. When seedlings outgrow the frames, they transplant into the main garden already established and strong. This head start means bigger plants and heavier yields compared to direct seeded crops that start weeks later. The Amish no-waste principle. Nothing leaves an Amish property without being completely used first. Every fallen leaf, breakfast eggshell, and cornstalk after harvest gets reused productively. Kitchen scraps go into compost bins where they transform into next season's fertilizer. Wood ash from heating stoves returns to gardens to balance soil pH. Even water used for washing vegetables gets poured on plants instead of down drains. This approach reduces household waste to almost nothing while constantly feeding the garden's natural cycles. The Amish don't do this primarily for environmental reasons, though that's certainly a benefit. They do it because waste represents lost resources, and efficient resource use is simply smart management. Modern zero-waste movements are rediscovering what Amish communities never stopped practicing. The garden acts as the final destination for everything organic, turning yesterday's waste into tomorrow's food supply. Deep root training. Shallow watering creates lazy roots that stay near the surface waiting for the next sprinkle. The Amish water from plant bases, encouraging roots to grow downward, searching for moisture deeper in the soil. Some Amish gardeners bury clay pots called olas next to plants. These pots have small holes that slowly weep water directly into root zones. Deep roots access moisture, reserves that surface roots never reach, making plants incredibly drought-resistant during dry periods. Olas work like underground drinking fountains that plants can sip from whenever thirsty. During dry weeks that stress other gardens badly, deep-rooted plants keep growing steadily without wilting. This method also means less frequent watering since deep soil holds moisture longer than the surface layer does. It's hands-free irrigation using gravity and ceramic properties instead of timers and electricity. The Amish set it up once, and plants maintain themselves afterward. Companion herbs for pest control. Herbs do more than season food in Amish gardens. Mint planted near garden entrances drives away ants that would otherwise farm aphids on vegetables. Sage deters beetles with strong oils that insects find overwhelming to their senses. These herbs get tucked between vegetable rows where their aroma creates confusion zones for pests. Bugs navigate partly by scent, and when strong herb smells overwhelm their ability to locate target plants, they simply move on to easier locations. It's low-cost natural defense that doubles as a seasoning source for cooking. The herbs don't need special care beyond normal watering. They grow happily while doing protective work in the background. Chemical pesticides kill everything, including beneficial insects, but herbs selectively deter only pests while leaving pollinators and predatory insects completely alone and functional. The Amish crop sharing system. Individual Amish families don't try growing every vegetable variety possible. Instead, different households specialize in different crops and trade their excess within the community network. One family grows exceptional tomatoes, another focuses on beans, a third masters squash production. This reduces the risk of total crop failure because if your tomatoes die but your neighbor's beans thrive, you still eat well through trading arrangements. Community gardens work better when everyone stops trying to be class president of every vegetable. It also promotes crop diversity across the entire community without requiring each family to maintain massive gardens. The system encourages cooperation and ensures everyone has varied nutrition throughout the season. Seeds get shared too, with each family saving and distributing their specialty varieties. This interconnected approach builds food security while strengthening community bonds that benefit everyone involved. Using cover crops for resting soil. Amish gardens don't go completely empty during off-seasons. Clover or rye gets planted when vegetables finish, keeping ground covered and biologically active. These cover crops add nitrogen back into soil, especially clover, which hosts bacteria that pull nitrogen from air and store it in root nodules. Dense growth also prevents erosion from winter rains and winds that would otherwise strip away valuable topsoil. Before spring planting begins, the Amish till these cover crops back into soil where they decompose and add substantial organic matter. This keeps soil biology thriving even during months when food crops aren't growing. Microbe populations stay strong, earthworms remain active, and soil structure continues improving. Cover cropping turns downtime into productive time where soil rebuilds itself naturally without external inputs. Come spring, gardens start fresh with enriched soil instead of depleted ground. Layered gardening, stack planting. Why grow one crop per bed when you can grow 3? The Amish plant root vegetables, climbing vines, and surface crops together in identical space. Carrots grow down in soil, beans climb up poles or trellises, and lettuce spreads along the surface between them. Each plant type feeds from different soil depths and doesn't compete directly with the others for resources. It's like apartment living for vegetables, except everyone gets along and shares instead of arguing. One bed produces triple yield compared to single crop planting methods. The diversity also benefits soil health since different root depths and types create varied channels and organic matter at multiple levels. This system maximizes productivity without expanding garden size at all. It requires more planning and knowledge about which plants work together, but the Amish have that knowledge embedded in their farming culture through generations. Water storage barrels. Rain falling on roofs usually runs off wasted, but the Amish catch it in wooden or metal barrels positioned strategically under downspouts. This collected water serves gardens better than tap water in several important ways. First, it's completely free. Second, it sits in barrels warming to ambient temperature so it doesn't shock sensitive plant roots like cold well water can. Third, it contains no chlorine or other chemicals added to municipal water supplies. The Amish connect multiple barrels with simple hoses, creating gravity-fed systems that require no pumps whatsoever. A barrel positioned at the garden's high end can water the entire plot by simply opening a valve and letting physics do the work. During dry weeks, these reserves keep gardens productive while neighbors watch municipal water restrictions cut their growing efforts short significantly. Natural trellises, plastic garden stakes, and metal cages fill store aisles, but the Amish build trellises from willow branches and sticks collected free from their properties. Flexible willow stems get bent into arches and tied with natural twine that biodegrades harmlessly. Beans, peas, and cucumbers climb these structures just as eagerly as expensive store-bought options provide. When growing season ends, these trellises either get reused the following year or composted if they've started rotting and breaking down. Plants can't tell the difference between $20 trellises and bundles of sticks from the woods. No plastic waste generated, no rust developing, no money spent on materials that plants don't care about anyway. The Amish prove that functional beats fancy when it comes to garden structures. A bent stick does the job just as well as engineered products, and it costs nothing but a walk through wooded areas. The Amish weed barrier method. Cardboard boxes get flattened and laid between garden rows before mulch goes down over them. This creates a barrier blocking 90% of weed growth without any chemicals or plastic sheeting involved. Over the growing season, cardboard slowly decomposes, adding carbon to soil and feeding beneficial microbes in the process. It's temporary weed control that eventually becomes fertilizer itself. The Amish collect cardboard throughout the year, removing any tape or plastic elements before garden use. Once laid down and covered with straw or wood chips, it creates an almost impenetrable barrier for weeds trying to push through from below. Seeds that land on top can't reach soil to establish roots. The method works especially well for large gardens where hand weeding would be overwhelming and time-consuming. By season's end, most cardboard has broken down enough to till under. Growing crops by zones. Walking into an Amish garden reveals clear organization patterns. Heavy feeders like corn and tomatoes occupy one zone. Light feeders like herbs sit in another section, and nitrogen fixers like beans have their own dedicated area. This zoning makes crop rotation simple since entire zones shift positions each year rather than tracking individual plant locations. It also prevents confusion about what nutrients each area needs for optimal growth. Heavy feeder zones get the most compost and manure applications, light feeder zones need less amendment, and nitrogen fixer zones actually improve soil for next year's rotation. Garden zones are basically neighborhoods where plants with similar appetites live together peacefully. Maintenance becomes easier when plants with similar needs grow together since they all receive the same care at the same time. The Amish have refined this zoning through generations. The vine swap technique. When a vine underperforms but the season isn't over yet, most gardeners accept defeat and wait until next year. The Amish try something different and surprisingly effective. They dig up the struggling vine, lay it sideways in a shallow trench, and bury part of the stem under soil. New roots form along the buried portion within days, giving the plant a fresh root system and renewed vigor to continue producing. This works particularly well with tomatoes, squash, and cucumber vines that naturally root from stem nodes. The technique restores weak plants without replanting or starting over with new seeds entirely. Vine swapping is basically giving plants a second chance at life without the whole reincarnation thing. The additional roots access more soil volume and nutrients, transforming a failing plant into a productive one mid-season. The Amish don't give up on plants quickly because they understand plant biology well enough to work with it. Saving rain for fertilizer. Mix. Plain water hydrates plants adequately, but rainwater mixed with compost tea feeds them substantially better. The Amish collect rainwater specifically for making fertilizer mixtures because it's softer than well water and naturally rich in nitrogen picked up while falling through the atmosphere. They soak finished compost in rain barrels, creating nutrient-rich tea that gets applied bi-weekly during active growth phases. This liquid fertilizer provides immediately available nutrients without the salt buildup that synthetic fertilizers cause over time. Plants respond with faster growth rates and darker green foliage that indicates excellent health. The application costs nothing since both the compost and rainwater are free products of the farm's natural cycles. Store-bought liquid fertilizers pale in comparison, both in price and in how completely plants respond to this natural feeding method that's been refined over generations. Resting beds. Every third year, Even good soil gets tired with constant production demands. The Amish rest 1/3 of their garden annually, either leaving it fallow or planting cover crops that get tilled back before flowering. This prevents soil fatigue and allows microbial populations to rebuild naturally without the constant drain of feeding hungry crops. The rested section comes back stronger the following year, producing substantially better harvests than if it had been pushed to produce continuously. Soil needs vacation days too, except it doesn't request time off or send postcards. This rotation of rest ensures that no area ever becomes completely depleted of nutrients or biology. It's preventive maintenance for soil health, addressing potential problems before they appear rather than reacting after yields drop noticeably. Modern intensive farming often skips rest periods, relying on heavy fertilization to maintain production levels. The Amish take the longer view. Homemade root boosters. When transplanting seedlings, the Amish dip roots in a mixture of honey, cinnamon, and water before planting. Honey provides simple sugars that give young plants immediate energy during the stressful transition period. Cinnamon acts as a natural antifungal agent, preventing root rot in vulnerable transplants that are adjusting to new environments. This solution works better than synthetic rooting gels sold in garden centers, and it costs pennies to make from common kitchen ingredients. The transplants establish faster, show dramatically less transplant shock, and develop stronger root systems in their new locations. Commercial products promise similar results, but rarely deliver as reliably as this simple formula does consistently. The Amish have tested it through countless transplanting sessions over generations, refining the ratios until they found what works best for various plant types and conditions. Using vinegar for weeding. White vinegar kills weeds without any synthetic chemicals or health concerns whatsoever. The Amish spray it directly on unwanted plants during sunny hours when the acetic acid works fastest and most effectively. Within hours, sprayed weeds wilt and die back completely. The trick is spot spraying carefully to avoid hitting desired plants, since vinegar doesn't discriminate between weeds and valuable vegetables. Vinegar treats all plants equally badly, so aim carefully or face salad casualties. A cheap spray bottle and regular household vinegar handle most weeding needs for a fraction of what commercial herbicides cost. This method works best on young weeds before they develop deep root systems that can regenerate. For stubborn perennials, repeated applications eventually exhaust the root reserves completely. The Amish use this for path weeds and fence lines where precision isn't as critical as open garden beds require. Saving onion skins and banana peels. Kitchen scraps that most people trash become valuable fertilizer in Amish households. Onion skins and banana peels get soaked in water for several days, creating a mineral solution rich in potassium and calcium that plants desperately need. This liquid gets sprayed on leaves or poured around plant bases as a free fertilizer boost throughout the growing season. Plants respond with stronger stems and better disease resistance against common garden problems. The process costs absolutely nothing and diverts organic waste from trash while feeding the garden productively. It's a closed loop where yesterday's dinner scraps become tomorrow's plant food without any processing required. Commercial fertilizers require mining, processing, packaging, and shipping, but onion skins and banana peels just need a bucket of water and a few days of patience. The Amish prove that valuable nutrients often get thrown away by people who don't recognize their worth. Homemade plant labels. Flat stones or wooden pieces serve as plant markers in Amish gardens instead of plastic tags. Names get etched or written with permanent methods, creating labels that last years instead of single seasons. Plastic labels fade quickly, crack in weather extremes, and blow away in storms, littering gardens with broken pieces that never decompose. Plastic plant labels have shorter lifespans than some of the vegetables they're supposed to identify. Stone and wood stay put permanently and remain readable indefinitely through all weather conditions. The Amish reuse the same markers every season, moving them to new locations as crop rotations shift positions. This keeps gardens organized without generating plastic waste or requiring annual marker purchases that add up financially. Function and longevity matter more than bright colors and brand names that serve no practical purpose beyond marketing appeal. Natural pest repellent mixes. When pests appear in force, the Amish reach for crushed chili peppers, garlic, and onion mixed with water. This spicy concoction gets sprayed weekly during peak pest season on affected plants. Aphids, mites, and beetles taste it once and avoid those plants afterward, seeking easier meals elsewhere. The mixture needs reapplication after rain washes it away, but ingredients cost so little that frequent spraying doesn't strain any budget whatsoever. This repellent works through irritation rather than killing, which means beneficial insects can still thrive in the garden performing their valuable work. It's fully organic, breaks down naturally in soil, and contains no ingredients that require warning labels or special handling. The Amish have used variations of this recipe for generations, adjusting ratios based on which specific pests they're facing in any given season. Rotating livestock. Grazing. After harvest, Amish fields don't sit empty waiting for spring to arrive. Goats or cows get rotated through, grazing on leftover plant material and dropped produce that would otherwise rot unused. Their hooves till the soil lightly, while their manure adds rich fertilizer exactly where next season's crops will grow. This natural fertilization beats purchased manure because it happens in place without transportation costs or spreading labor. The animals benefit from free forage, while fields benefit from their waste and tilling action simultaneously. Cows basically get free buffets while working as fertilizer spreaders without knowing they have a job. By spring, soil is enriched and ready for planting without any mechanical preparation beyond basic seedbed shaping. This integration of animals and crops creates synergy where each element supports the other naturally. Modern agriculture separates crop and animal operations, missing these beneficial interactions completely. Early frost protection. Burlap or straw mats placed over garden beds at night protect tender seedlings during unexpected spring cold snaps. The Amish check weather signs carefully and cover vulnerable plants before temperatures drop dangerously low. These covers get removed each morning to prevent mold growth and allow sunlight to reach plants during warmer daylight hours. The material traps ground heat that radiates upward from soil, creating a microclimate several degrees warmer than exposed air. This simple technique saves entire plantings from frost damage that would otherwise kill weeks of growth in a single night. Frost protection is basically tucking plants into bed with blankets, except they can't complain about being too hot. The same mats get reused season after season, stored carefully when not needed. Unlike plastic row covers that tear and degrade, burlap and straw last for years with proper care. This protection method costs almost nothing but saves valuable crops repeatedly throughout unpredictable spring weather patterns. Smart plant spacing. Exact spacing prevents nutrient competition between plants while ensuring each one gets adequate sunlight and airflow. The Amish use hand lengths and steps as measuring tools instead of tape measures or fancy spacing guides. A tomato plant needs roughly 2 feet in all directions, measured by spreading arms to elbow width. Lettuce needs about 1 hand width between plants. This body-based measurement system works perfectly and requires no tools to carry around the garden. Proper spacing means every plant develops fully without being stunted by crowded neighbors stealing resources. Airflow between plants reduces disease problems since moisture can evaporate instead of creating damp conditions fungi love. Crowded gardens might look fuller initially, but properly spaced gardens produce dramatically more food per plant. The Amish maximize yield through strategic spacing that gives each plant exactly what it needs to thrive and produce abundantly. The Amish bug repelling border. Garlic, onions, and chives planted around garden edges act as natural insect shields protecting interior crops. These pungent plants release compounds through their leaves and roots that many pests find repulsive and avoid entirely. The strong odors mask the scent of vegetables inside the border, making it harder for insects to locate their preferred food sources. Border planting is basically building an aromatic fence that bugs refuse to cross voluntarily. This defensive perimeter reduces pest entry by up to 80%, according to observations across multiple Amish farms over many years. The border plants themselves are useful too, providing cooking ingredients while serving their protective function. It's a defense system that feeds the family while guarding the garden. Commercial pest barriers require maintenance and replacement, but living borders improve year after year as plants establish stronger root systems and denser growth patterns. Drying and storing herbs. Bundles of herbs get hung upside down in shaded areas with good airflow after harvesting. The Amish avoid direct sunlight during drying because it breaks down essential oils that provide flavor and medicinal properties. Once completely dry and crispy to the touch, herbs get stored in paper bags rather than plastic or glass containers. Paper allows continued airflow, preventing moisture buildup that causes mold, while plastic traps any remaining dampness. This natural preservation method maintains oils and flavor for months without any electricity or special equipment needed. Electric dehydrators speed the process but can overheat herbs and destroy delicate compounds. Slow air drying takes longer but produces superior results that any cook can taste immediately. The Amish have perfected this technique over generations, knowing exactly when to harvest each herb type for maximum oil content and flavor intensity. Saving water through mulch. Paths. Walkways covered in thick mulch redirect rainwater into garden soil instead of running off uselessly. The Amish reuse farm waste like straw and wood chips as path mulch, turning disposal problems into water conservation solutions. When rain falls, mulched paths absorb water slowly, then release it gradually into surrounding soil throughout the following days. This reduces water runoff dramatically while keeping the entire garden moist longer between rain events. Mulched paths basically work like sponges that squeeze slowly, keeping plants hydrated without any pumps. Hard-packed or bare soil paths shed water quickly, sending it away before plants can use it. The mulch also prevents path soil from compacting under foot traffic, maintaining its ability to absorb and hold moisture. This double benefit of weed suppression and water conservation makes mulched paths essential elements in Amish garden design rather than afterthoughts or purely aesthetic choices. Using gravel drainage. Gravel layered under pots or raised beds improves drainage dramatically during heavy rain periods. The Amish place several inches of coarse gravel at the bottom before adding soil on top. This prevents root rot that kills plants when waterlogged soil suffocates roots by excluding oxygen. Water drains through soil into the gravel layer, then slowly seeps away instead of sitting stagnant around root zones. In humid areas or locations with heavy clay soil, this drainage layer becomes absolutely essential for successful gardening. Gravel drainage is basically installing basement sump pumps for plant roots, minus the electricity and annoying sounds. The gravel also ensures oxygen reaches deeper root zones, since air can move through gravel spaces even when surrounding soil is saturated. Strong, healthy roots need both water and oxygen, and gravel layers provide the balance that keeps both available. The Amish learned long ago that drainage matters as much as watering for plant health and productivity. The rotation logbook. Every Amish gardener keeps a simple notebook recording plant history year by year. Notes include what grew where, yield amounts, pest problems encountered, and timing of planting and harvesting. This information becomes invaluable for planning future seasons and avoiding repeated mistakes. The logbook shows which crop rotations worked best and which combinations struggled or failed. Weather notes help identify patterns over years that single-season memory can't track accurately. Soil amendment amounts get recorded, so successful combinations can be repeated precisely. Disease outbreaks get documented with details about which varieties resisted and which succumbed quickly. This written memory beats digital tracking because paper never crashes, needs no batteries, and works in muddy gardens without worry. The Amish measure success across decades using these logbooks as guides that improve with each passing season's additional information and observations. Long-term soil health mindset. Amish gardens thrive because they feed soil first rather than focusing primarily on feeding crops directly. Every technique and practice prioritizes building soil biology, structure, and fertility as the foundation of success. Chemical shortcuts might boost one season's yield, but they degrade soil over time by killing beneficial organisms and creating nutrient imbalances. The Amish measure gardening success in years and decades, not individual seasons or harvests. This patient approach means soil gets richer annually instead of more depleted with each planting cycle. Gardens actually become easier to maintain as soil health improves because strong soil grows strong plants that resist pests and diseases naturally. Commercial agriculture chases short-term yields with inputs that create long-term problems, requiring more inputs in an endless, expensive cycle. The Amish broke that cycle generations ago by understanding that healthy soil is wealth that compounds like interest, paying dividends forever once established properly through consistent, careful stewardship. Helping bees help you. The wildflower patches scattered throughout the Amish vegetable garden looked decorative to casual observers, but they served essential functions in supporting the pollinator populations that made abundant harvests possible. Native flowers required no maintenance once established, but provided nectar sources throughout the growing season in Amish pollinator management systems, supporting different bee species with varying flight ranges and flower preferences that commercial crops couldn't satisfy alone. Chemical-free growing practices ensured that beneficial insects encountered no toxic residues on flowers or foliage in Amish gardens, allowing natural predator-prey relationships to develop without interference from synthetic pesticides. These biological control systems often worked more effectively than any single intervention, maintaining pest populations at manageable levels through complex interactions that chemical approaches disrupted or destroyed entirely. Bees operate like the ultimate freelance workforce. They show up on time, do excellent work without supervision, never ask for benefits or vacation time, and their only payment requirements involve flowers and maybe some sugar water during economic downturns. Fruit and vegetable yields increased dramatically when adequate pollination occurred naturally through healthy bee populations in Amish farming systems. Squash, cucumbers, melons, and fruit trees all depended on insect pollination for productive harvests, while even self-pollinating crops like tomatoes benefited from bee activity that improved fruit set and development. Creating bee-friendly garden environments paid immediate dividends in increased production while supporting broader ecological health that extended far beyond individual Amish garden boundaries. Extending the season. The cold frame built from salvaged windows trapped solar energy during short winter days, creating a microclimate warm enough to grow fresh lettuce and spinach while snow covered the ground outside. These simple structures cost almost nothing to build, but extended productive growing seasons by weeks on both ends, providing fresh vegetables when grocery store prices peaked and selection was most limited. Cool season crops like kale, carrots, and Brussels sprouts actually developed better flavor after exposure to light frosts, concentrating sugars that made them sweeter and more complex than the same varieties grown during warm weather. Row covers made from lightweight fabric provided several degrees of frost protection while allowing light and moisture to reach plants, extending harvests well into what most gardeners considered the dormant season. Strategic planting schedules took advantage of natural seasonal patterns rather than fighting against inevitable weather changes. Late summer plantings of cool season crops matured during optimal fall conditions when pest pressure decreased and soil moisture was more reliable than during spring startup periods. Understanding local climate patterns allowed gardeners to time plantings for maximum success, rather than following generic recommendations that might not fit specific regional conditions, creating productive gardens that worked with natural cycles rather than depending entirely on artificial protection systems. Watering for results. When it comes to watering, most people grab a hose and spray everything in sight, like they're washing a car. But Amish gardeners have figured out something that modern irrigation systems with their fancy timers and sprinkler heads seem to miss completely. The secret isn't about how much water you use, but how you use the water you have. Amish watering methods focus on deep, thorough soaking rather than frequent light sprinklings that barely wet the surface. They water less often, but give plants a real drink that reaches down to where the roots actually live. This approach encourages roots to grow deeper into the soil, creating stronger plants that can withstand drought conditions and don't need constant attention. Some people water their gardens like they're trying to give plants a light mist facial, while Amish gardeners provide the deep, satisfying drink that roots have been begging for. It's the difference between a quick splash and a proper bath. The timing and technique matter just as much as the amount. Amish women water only at the base of plants, keeping the leaves dry to prevent fungal diseases that thrive in moist conditions. They use watering cans or direct hoses to target the root zone specifically, avoiding the wasteful overhead spraying that gets more water on the ground than on the plants. One of the most ingenious Amish watering methods involves burying clay pots or old jugs with small holes near plant roots. These containers get filled with water and slowly release moisture directly into the soil over several days. This underground irrigation system ensures plants get consistent moisture without any evaporation loss, and it works even when the family is busy with other farm duties. The clay pots work especially well because they're porous and release water at exactly the rate that soil can absorb it, preventing both waterlogging and dry spells that can stress plants. Cutting back for growth. Winter pruning in Amish orchards transforms gnarled, overgrown trees into productive powerhouses that channel their energy into fruit production rather than excessive wood growth. The bare branches reveal the tree's true structure, making it easy to identify crossing limbs, dead wood, and shoots that compete with main branches for nutrients and sunlight. Dormant season cutting allows trees to heal properly before spring growth begins, sealing wounds naturally without the stress of active growing periods. Fruit trees pruned during winter dormancy respond by producing more flowering spurs and fewer water sprouts, concentrating their efforts on reproductive growth rather than vegetative expansion. Grapevines get similar treatment, with old canes removed to make room for young, productive wood that will carry the next season's crop. The timing matters as much as the technique. Pruning too early exposes cuts to winter damage, while waiting too late wastes energy that trees put into growth that gets immediately removed. Proper pruning actually extends tree life by preventing the structural problems that cause mature trees to split or collapse under heavy fruit loads. Well-pruned trees produce consistently for decades, while neglected ones often alternate between heavy and light crops, exhausting themselves with irregular production patterns. Watching plants closely. Daily garden walks through Amish growing areas might look like casual strolls, but they're actually systematic inspection tours where experienced eyes catch problems before they become serious. Yellowing leaves, wilting stems, and chewed foliage show up clearly to observers who know what healthy plants should look like at different growth stages. Early detection makes the difference between simple solutions and major crop losses. Aphid colonies spotted when they're still small clusters can be controlled with a spray from the garden hose, but the same pests allowed to establish large populations require more intensive treatments that may not be completely effective. Plant watching is like being a garden detective. You're always looking for clues that something's not quite right, except the criminals are usually small, green, and they multiply faster than rabbits in springtime. Preventive thinking guides these observation routines, with gardeners looking for conditions that favor problems rather than waiting for symptoms to appear. High humidity that encourages fungal diseases, drought stress that weakens plant defenses, and pest damage that creates entry points for secondary infections all get addressed before they cause visible damage. This proactive approach requires more daily attention than reactive problem solving, but it prevents the kind of catastrophic losses that can wipe out entire crops when conditions favor rapid disease or pest development. Old-fashioned plant fixes. Kitchen ingredients become powerful plant medicines in traditional Amish gardening systems where milk sprayed on leaves prevents powdery mildew and baking soda solutions control fungal problems without synthetic chemicals. These time-tested remedies work because they change leaf surface conditions in ways that make plant tissues inhospitable to disease organisms while remaining completely safe for human consumption. Vinegar traps catch fruit flies and other small flying pests using their attraction to fermentation odors, concentrating insects where they can be easily eliminated. Soap solutions disrupt insect feeding by coating pest bodies with slippery films that interfere with their ability to grip plant surfaces and pierce plant tissues for feeding. The beauty of these traditional treatments lies in their availability and low cost. Most households already have the ingredients needed to control common garden problems without special trips to agricultural supply stores. Milk costs less per gallon than most commercial fungicides and works just as effectively for many common diseases. These solutions break down quickly in the environment without building up toxic residues that could harm beneficial insects or contaminate soil and water systems around treated plants. While you're spending hundreds on fancy fertilizers and gadgets, the Amish are growing twice the food at a fraction of the cost using kitchen scraps and pocket change. These 20 deceptively simple techniques have been perfected over generations, and gardeners who discover them are kicking themselves for not knowing them sooner. Plant seeds. Point down. Have you ever planted a whole packet of seeds only to watch half of them fail to sprout? The solution might be simpler than you think. For generations, Amish farmers have been planting seeds with the pointed end facing downward. And there's good science behind this old-fashioned wisdom. When you place a seed point down in the soil, you're actually helping the young plant get a head start. Roots establish about 40% faster this way compared to seeds tossed in randomly. It's like giving your seeds a compass that points straight to where they need to go. Take common vegetables like beans, corn, and squash. These seeds naturally want to send roots downward and shoots upward. When you help them get oriented correctly from the start, germination rates jump up to 80% compared to random placement. That means more plants from the same number of seeds, something Amish gardeners have counted on for decades to maximize their harvests. Amish gardeners have passed down this wisdom for generations, recognizing that seeds naturally know which way to grow when properly oriented. The technique actually mimics how seeds fall in nature. Think about it. Most seeds aren't perfectly round. Their pointed ends often hit the ground first, positioning them naturally for optimal growth. The Amish didn't invent this method, they simply observed nature and followed its lead. In the future, you're planting larger seeds like beans, peas, corn, or pumpkins. Take the extra few seconds to point them downward. Your garden will thank you with faster germination and stronger plants. Some Amish gardeners even use a small stick to make the hole at the perfect angle for each seed. A bit time-consuming perhaps, but in gardening, patience at planting time often leads to better harvests later. Soak seeds in chamomile tea. The quiet wisdom of Amish gardening often comes from the kitchen as much as from the field. A cup of chamomile tea might be perfect for settling your nerves after a long day, but in Amish communities, this gentle brew pulls double duty as a powerful seed starter. Creating this natural seed booster couldn't be simpler. Just steep 2 chamomile tea bags in a cup of water for about 10 minutes until it's the color of honey, then let it cool completely. Larger seeds like tomatoes or pumpkins get a good long soak, about 12 hours, while smaller seeds like lettuce or carrots need only 6 hours in their chamomile bath. What makes this work so well? Chamomile contains natural compounds that fight fungus, protecting vulnerable seeds from the dreaded damping off disease that can wipe out entire seedling trays overnight. Amish gardeners have relied on this protection for generations, long before commercial seed treatments were available. Research backs up what the Amish have known all along. Seeds treated with chamomile tea germinate up to 3 days faster than untreated seeds. For folks who count every growing day as precious, those 3 days can make all the difference between a bountiful harvest and an early frost disaster. In Amish communities, there's a balance between respecting natural growing cycles and making the most of every precious day in the growing season. Historical records show chamomile has been used as plant medicine in Amish communities since they first settled in America. The tradition likely came over from Europe, where chamomile has been recognized for its medicinal properties for centuries. The next time you're starting seeds, skip the chemical treatments and brew up some chamomile tea instead. Your seeds will emerge stronger, faster, and better protected, just as they have in Amish gardens for hundreds of years. And if you have any tea left over, you might as well enjoy a cup yourself. After all, it's probably the only time your plants will thank you for steeping them in hot water. Copper pennies in flower pots. Did you know the change in your pocket could be the secret to healthier potted plants? Before filling your flower pots with soil, try dropping in a penny first. This isn't just any old garden superstition. It's a practice many Amish gardeners have relied on for decades. The trick works because of the copper content in older pennies. When you place a penny at the bottom of each pot before adding soil, it acts as a natural fungicide. The copper slowly releases ions into the soil that create an environment hostile to many fungal pathogens, but perfectly safe for your plants. Here's the catch. This only works with pennies minted before 1982. Those older coins contain about 95% copper, while newer ones are mostly zinc with just a thin copper coating. The difference matters because it's the copper that provides the fungus fighting power. The numbers speak for themselves. Garden tests show this simple trick reduces fungal problems by up to 65% compared to untreated pots. For the Amish, who prefer natural solutions over chemical treatments, this represents practical wisdom worth its weight in copper. Science explains that copper ions slowly leach into the soil over time, creating a protective barrier against damping off and other common container plant diseases. Just 1 penny can protect a standard-sized pot throughout the growing season. Going forward, you're setting up containers for your patio tomatoes or window herbs. Check the dates on your pennies. 1,981 penny might be the most valuable investment you'll make in your garden this year. And when fall cleanup comes around, you can collect those pennies to use again next season. A recycling program that's both economical and effective for any gardener. The Amish prove that great gardens don't come from fancy tools or store-bought solutions. They come from patience, balance, and respect for the land. Their time-tested methods remind us that nature already knows what it's doing. We just need to listen.